Welcome to the virtual readings of the 2016-2017 cohort of the ALTA Emerging Translator Mentorship Program. My name is Allison Charette. I facilitate the program, and happy International Translation Day to all who are viewing. This is, for those who don't know, this is something that happens every year on the Feast of St. Jerome, who was one of the earliest known Bible translators. He translated most of the Bible into Latin, and so we love him. So today we have with us 3 out of our 4 mentees from this past year who have done amazing work. Unfortunately, Eliza Rose, our Polish mentee, was unable to make it, but we send her all the best. We have Sabrina Yasi with us. We have Noah Mintz and Natasha Bruce. They are going to be reading some excerpts of the works that they've done, that they've been working on with their mentors for the past year. So it's been a long process for all of them, and I can't wait to hear what they have for us. So first up, we're going to start with Sabrina Yasi. I also very, very much need to thank all of our funders for this year, who are the French Embassy Books Office, the Polish Cultural Institute of New York, the Russian Federation Institute of Literary Translation, and the National Arts Council of Singapore. Without them, none of this would be possible. So thank you all very, very much for your support of this program. So we will start now with Sabrina Yasi, who's going to be reading No Voice by Reed Grachev. And if you have any sort of introduction for it, you're more than welcome to let us know. Otherwise, you can just dive right in. Sabrina, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Allison, and thank you to ALTA and all the funders for organizing the mentorship and reading, and thank you to my other readers today. So over the course of the last year, I've been translating the short stories of Rid Gachef, who is a little-known Leningrad author of the 1960s, and today I'm going to be reading a very short story from his story cycle entitled Sons Without Fathers, Beatibies Atzot. This is a group of link stories that follows a recurring cast of boys in a Soviet orphanage, including the 2 heroes of this story. And just a note on the names in the story, since, as in a lot of Russian literature, they can be confusing. The meathead character is the narrator, and he also goes by Martinov. And then his friend is named Corn Cob in my translation, and he also goes by Vovka, which is his first name. Okay, so I'll start by reading just 1 paragraph in Russian, and then I'll go on to the translation. Okay, so it's called No Voice, in Russian, Нет голоса. Привезли нас в большой город песни петь. Кочергина только петь, а меня еще танцевать. А всего нас 53. Выгрузили нас, в школе на кровати посадили, а есть не дают. Вовка Кочергин походил по коридору, понюхал, а ничем съедобным не пахнет, только масляной краской. Подошел ко мне, говорит, давай, мясник, я тебя съем. Okay, so here is my translation of No Voice by Reed Grachev. They brought us to the big city to sing some songs. Corn Cob was just to sing, but I was to dance too. There were 53 of us altogether. They unloaded us at a school and sat us on some beds, but nothing to eat. Vovka Corn Cob walked the halls sniffing, but smelled nothing edible, just oil paint. He came over to me. Hey, meathead, how about I eat you, he says. Don't eat me, Corn Cob, I say. Wait, and maybe they'll feed us. What if they don't? I'd like to eat your hand and nibble your cheeks. Wait, I say, they've always fed us before, and they may again. You can eat me later, when we're sure there's no food. Fine, Vovka says, then let's go scrounge something up in town. We go to town, a beautiful town, smells good. We walk, and come to a factory. It turns out it's the factory that smells good. Chocolate, Vovka says. No, I say, chess cookies. Chess cookies are made in a bakery, not a factory, Vovka says. No way chocolate is made in a factory, I say. What factory do you know that smells like chocolate? Factories smell like iron. Other factories smell like iron because their machines are made of iron, Wolfka says. But here they must be made of chocolate. We stood, sniffed, bickered. We kept walking, got to another street, a beautiful street. Look, Wolfka says, a cafe. And there's a restaurant, I say. We need something not so nice, Wolfka says, like this diner. All right, a diner, I say, but here's a cafeteria. Perfect for us, and smells even better than the restaurant. We stood and sniffed, then we kept walking. Up ahead there were no smells, just flowers, a beautiful street with flowers on both sides. Paved, no holes. Then it smelled of wine. I wish I could get drunk, Wolfka says, then I'd fry you up and eat you. Wolfka, I say, what if the others are being fed right now? Hold up, he says, first let's find where it smells of wine. We keep walking, see a bar. There's a man in front snatching people's sleeves as they go by. They get free and keep walking. The man snatches other people's sleeves and points to his throat. We go up to him and he snatches Wolfka's sleeve. He has hands like a worker, the bones in them, a worker's. What do you want, Wolfka says. He points to his throat, croaks. What do you want, Wolfka asks. He croaks, and coughs. Voice, I have no voice, he says. What's that you're speaking with, Wolfka says. The man looks at Wolfka, then at me, and starts shouting. Bastards, sons of bitches, cocksuckers, scumbags, motherfuckers, and other cuss words. Who are you swearing at, us? Wolfka asks. Demons, succubi, assassins, he shouts. Again he grabs his throat and croaks. He motions with his hand. Get the hell away. We go. I don't get it, his having no voice, Wolfka says as we're walking. Me neither, I say. He was talking after all. And what was he croaking for, Wolfka asks. I don't know, but let him. And let's hurry, my stomach is sticking to my back. Mine too, Wolfka says. But I feel sorry for him. Back at the school, we run into the director, Pavel Vasilyevich. Get dressed at once, we're leaving for the House of Culture. How about lunch, I ask. What are you bothering me for, Pavel Vasilyevich says. The concert is in half an hour. Did you have lunch? Wolfka asks the others. Did we ever? They respond. What about us? You were late. Pavel Vasilyevich is on our case again. Still not dressed? Just you wait, Corncob. I'm coming for you. But we haven't eaten, Wolfka says. You'll eat after, Pavel Vasilyevich says. Sing first. Now hurry up and get dressed. You'd have to be crazy to come sing somewhere on an empty stomach, Wolfka says to me. You're right, I say. Wait a minute, we'll show him. We'll have no voice. What do you mean, I ask. Then Pavel Vasilyevich is honest again. Still not dressed. Brace yourself, Martinov. After the concert, I'll give you two something to sing about. Croak, Wolfka whispers. I catch his drift. Pavel Vasilyevich, we have no voice, I mouth. What did you say? We have no voice. Well, you'll have one in a minute, Pavel Vasilyevich says and grabs my ear. Ow, I say. Guess you do have a voice. Now run and get dressed. He hurries off and the other kids surround us. So, meathead, you got your vocal cords checked. Says, it's not fair making us sing without lunch. You're right, they say. It's not. You guys, Wolfka says, let's pretend not to have a voice until they feed us. He won't believe us, the others say. Well, of course not. You'll be doing it in protest, Wolfka says. A protest, they say. Back home he'll stage a real one. Fine, Wolfka says. To hell with you all. We arrive at the House of Culture and take our places on the stage. The curtains part and we start singing. Suddenly, Wolfka grabs my hand. Don't sing. I understand and stay quiet. Wolfka doesn't sing either. We're looking at Pavel Vasilyevich, opening our mouths wide and croaking. Nothing. He's smiling and winking, so we'll sing more cheerily. He doesn't hear us, Wolfka says to me. We're quiet again. Everyone's singing but us. We're opening our mouths wide and staring at Pavel Vasilyevich. No reaction. We're not singing, I hear Vovka shout suddenly, but he doesn't hear us. Idiot! Faster! Cocksucker! Vovka shouts, and he doesn't hear us. Assassin! Succubus! 4 eyes! I shout, but he doesn't hear us. Everyone's singing and we're shouting, but it's like we're silent. A choir really is loud. Then I dance because I have to. You use your legs to dance after all. Then we go to dinner. I understand what that man meant, what it means to have no voice, Vovka says. And I understand, I say. That's it.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. It's always such a shame that we have to turn off all the rest of our videos and not be able to hear the audience here, because I was just dying with laughter. So funny. All right. Thank you very much, Sabrina.
Thank you, Alison.
All right. Next up, we have Noah Mintz, who is the mentee from French. He's going to be reading excerpts from the yet-to-be English titled À l'arrache by Patrick Goujon. And maybe later we'll talk to you a little bit about how difficult that title is to translate.
Yeah, it's been probably the most challenging part of the translation, just that title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can come last. That's totally fine.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll be reading from À l'arrache by Patrick Goujon. I have it right here. I'll read the first paragraph or so in French. I don't think there's really any context we need, so let's just jump in. Caddy a passé l'avant-bras par la vitre du minibus. Sa main fondait le vent en ondulation. Et regardez, c'est un dauphin! À chaque voiture qu'on croisait, Fred lui rappelait d'être vigilante. Attention au paquebot! Jusqu'à ce que ça finisse par gaver les oreilles d'Adama, qui, contrairement à Alban et Herman, avait oublié son MP3. Il a tiré le bras de Caddy pendant qu'elle capturait l'air dans sa main en coupoule pour fendre de s'asperger le visage avec. T'entends parce que ce qu'on te dit, et d'autorité, il a remonté la vitre. Je prenais un bol d'air. Caddy stuck her forearm out the window of the minibus, her hand cutting through the wind in undulations. Look, it's a dolphin. With every car we came across, Fred reminded her to be careful. Watch out for the semi, to the point where Adama, who, unlike Alban and Herman, had forgotten his MP3 player, was fed up listening to it. He pulled Caddy's arm while she was capturing the air in her cupped hand to pretend to splash her face with it. Don't you hear what people tell you? And he rolled the window back up with authority. I was just trying to catch some fresh air. The monotonous but pleasant road, sunflowers. Fatou is searching for an anomaly, a rebel flower with its back turned to the sun. Would we stop breathing if there's no more trees? She asked. In the parking lot, there was naturally a rush toward the shopping carts in their corral. Fred had handed the plastic token over to Alban, who came sliding back with the cart. 3 or 4 kicks, and then he jumped up and perched on the support bar, sneakers wedged above the wheels, the cart his race car, while the others, unexpectedly frozen, strangely defensive, hands in their pants pockets and shoulders slumped, dragged their feet toward the entrance of the supermarket. They stopped in front of the automatic doors. They stared at the families who, in turn, did the same. To a girl of about 15, Herman said, "What's up?" And the girl went to stick close by her father, busy scrutinizing the coupon catalog. Herman, not easily fazed, or maybe to lay the blame for his actions on someone else, asked me, "What's that prissy chick's deal, huh? She never seen a noir before?" "It's just the country," Fred retorted. "There are blacks here too. Cut it out for 5 seconds." "I didn't say blacks, I said noirs." "Don't fall for the delusion that you're being persecuted," I added. "You have as much right to be here as anyone, and no one cares. Just don't wreak havoc. No shouting, no running in the aisles, that's all." Still, they all lowered their heads upon crossing the entry, including Alban, white as a voting ballot, until Herman exaggeratedly lifted his chin, put on his cap, before then folded in the back pocket of his jeans. He stood tall with braggadocio and let loose a, "Wesh, come on, we'll show them who's boss." He made his way between the lettuce and the endive, putting on a cocky show of self-confidence, imitated at once by all the others, that second skin of an enraged kid, slamming freezer doors after bickering over the flavors of ice cream, arguing between the strawberry and the mango, cream and sorbet, cones and bars, ditching the packet of cookies between the cereal boxes, pecans ultimately being deemed too lame, pushing each other, sucking their teeth at each other, telling each other to fuck off. They're being such a pain in the ass, I grumbled to Fred. You know the concept of stigma reversal? I shook my head no. We're right in the middle of it. Not for long once I chew them out. I started by shaming Herman to catch the other's attention, and since I was foolishly worried he'd ask why me, I preempted with a, this goes for everyone. Like if this kept up, damned if we wouldn't all go right back to the banlieue this minute. We don't have to put up with this. We have our own lives, and declaring that, threatening it, I repressed the gorge in my gut so it wouldn't rise into my throat. We're happy to be here on vacation with you, let's be clear, but we don't have to be, so you cool it right now. You, give me your hat, you, give him his money back, and you're going to put that club sandwich back. It wasn't even halal anyway, Adama said. At the checkout, their crestfallen faces and the dead calm that reigned over them would have to be seen to be believed. The cashier scanned the products. The girls arranged them in bags, which the boys placed in the cart. The cashier, with the sweet face of an adorable young student, whom I was watching, striving not to get caught in the blue ribbon tied in her hair, not to see the heart-shaped pout of her upper lip, not to notice the furtive glances she cast at her colleague 2 registers over. Each time her gaze accidentally came against those of the children, that touch of contempt and the absence of a response when Fatou, Kadi, Adama, Alban, Herman, unenthusiastically sure but in chorus, greeted her with a, have a nice day, ma'am. She bit her cheek and, rightly or wrongly, I ignored her attitude, ignored my anger, which growled silently, focusing on the asinine radio ads, the store announcements. Claire, you're needed at the front desk. Claire to the front desk. From the balcony, Flex was watching the horizon. Still and again, the same flashing light at the tip of the monument, of the Capitol, at this allure. How many revolutions and since when did we no longer even notice it, along with the airplanes we no longer heard? At least every 7 minutes, all day long, and partway through the night. 2 red dots at a variable distance, the wingspan no more significant than the imaginary line connecting the incandescent tip of Flex's cigarette and mine, the same cigarette, which we took turns drawing on while watching the same horizon. I said, it's over with Claire. Over, over, over. Flex understood that I would hold on to the cigarette until it burned down to the filter, so he lit himself another. 6 years ago, no, 7, I kissed her here for the first time. Fuck, all that for this. Flex looked at me, his face totally blank. I rode on the metro the whole way, like I did before, like I used to. Claire says that I squander my energy, that I waste it in the wrong places, and what's the point of even having so much, if that's what I'm gonna do with it? I let out a nervous snicker. What the fuck does she know? She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, so it pisses me off that she's still right somehow. Sure, maybe I could have. Maybe I could have written a book or whatever, written something serious or painted, but I haven't traveled, you know? What have I ever seen? I don't have a mommy and a daddy who shove a solid gold thermometer up my ass when I have a fever, you know? The farthest I've ever gone, it's not even about how many miles I've gone. It's how little time I've spent elsewhere. What's that worth? She makes me laugh. Literature is something else. It's important causes, heroes, lives that make you dream. Especially today, people couldn't care less about other people's shitty lives. They already have their own. The outline of Flex's nose, perfectly straight and square, of his mouth, his forehead, you'd think they were cut out with scissors. Him and the scenery outside like 2 distinct images superimposed, like in the movies where the background is rigged up behind the actor. It had that sort of effect, with the car headlights and everything. That's where you're wrong. First off, you don't give a fuck about people. And then, thank God, life ain't limited just to theirs or ours. You see, the sun also sets on parking lots. The pain had disappeared, so I pushed harder on it, fingers numbed by the ice and wind, to make sure it was still there. It worked. Son of a bitch, I hissed through my teeth. The caretaker at the gymnasium had this time thought to turn off the lights. The rectangular windows were dark. Tell you what, if I'd had to write a book, for example, I'm realizing now it would have been to see what book I'd write if I'd been somewhere else. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noah.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. So we will now move on to our final reader, Natasha Bruce. And before we do that, I did want to mention that for all those of you who are watching this live, if you have any questions for our readers, you can email them to me because I haven't quite figured out the YouTube live setup, but shh, don't tell anyone. You can email them to me at AllisonCharette@literarytranslators.org. That is ALLISONCHARETTE@literarytranslators.org. And we'll have a quick Q&A session after our readers have all finished. Finally, I would like to also very much thank the mentors who have been working with our 4 mentees for the past year. We have Emmanuelle Ertel, Bill Johnston, Marian Schwartz, and Jeremy Tiang, and they have given enormous amounts of their time and knowledge and energy to help these wonderful emerging translators along. And for that, we are also eternally grateful. So finally, for this evening, we have, or rather this morning, where Natasha is, we have Natasha Bruce, who is very wonderfully joining us from Hong Kong at 8 o'clock in the morning her time. So thank you very much for that.
That's okay.
And Tasha's going to be reading a couple of excerpts from Lonely Face by Yeng Pway Ngon, and I will let you explain whatever you'd like and take it away.
Thank you, Alison. And yeah, thank you also to ALTA and to my mentor, Jeremy, and the Singapore Arts Council for making the mentorship possible, because it's been wonderful and I'm very happy that I got to take part. I'm going to read 2 short extracts from the opening chapter of the novel I've been working on, which, as Alison said, is called Lonely Face or Guji de Lian, and it's by the Singaporean author Yeng Pway Ngon. It's a novel that he wrote in 1989, and it is about a 39-year-old man whose wife and child have just left him, despite what he claims in the first line of what I'm about to read, and whose father has just died. And he's taken himself to this casino hotel resort to reflect on those 2 events, but actually also his whole life, just asking himself basically where everything went wrong. The structure of the novel is quite interesting because it cycles through the second, first, and third person perspective, depending on chapter, which creates this effect where you feel like you're zooming in really, really close on this man and his sadness, and then kind of pulling away just when it starts to feel like it might be getting a bit unbearable. So as you can imagine, it's not always the most uplifting of novels, but I think that one thing Yeng Pway Ngon does really, really well is to introduce kind of comic relief, often in the form of quite sharply described secondary characters, just when you need it the most. But that said, the extracts that I'm going to read are from the first chapter, where he's setting the scene for the death of the father and the departure of the wife. So in some respects, if you don't feel slightly depressed after listening to my reading, then I might have failed as a translator. I'm not going to read it in Chinese to start with, like the other 2 did with their languages, because I don't trust my pronunciations to do it justice. So I'm just going to start with English. I broke up with Chini, you write, as though informing a faraway friend of recent developments. But in fact, it's a confession to your father. I've decided to divorce her, you add, and then pause, letting your right hand rest against the paper, still gripping the pen. Its nib hovers over the blank page like a hawk. You don't know how to continue. There are a million things you want to tell your father, but every time you try to put them down on paper, it's like knocking over a case of movable type. The words jumble in your head, and it's all you can do to piece together a few disjointed sentences. And now you're stuck again. You put down the pen and examine yourself in the dressing table mirror. A long, wan, gloomy face. Sunken eye sockets concealing a pair of lifeless eyes, their murky whites threaded with cobwebby blood vessels. Greenish under-eye bags bordered by deep, trench-like wrinkles. The skin is coarse and broken out in little red bumps. You lean closer. Your eyes shift into sharper relief, and now the under-eye bags are leather pouches, rough as crocodile hide. And underneath are the pimples. It's truly baffling to be almost 40 years old and still suffering from acne. You poke one gingerly with a fingernail and feel a sharp stab of pain. You take your hand away. It's best not to touch them. You bring a finger to your forehead, slowly brushing away a stray lock of hair. You've just showered and your damp hair seems a little sparse. The white of your scalp shows through. Your hairline's receding, and it's especially noticeable at your temples, where the newly exposed skin looks like a beach eating away at a forest. Dizzy from too long pressed against the mirror, you shift to view your face from a little further away. Those tired eyes again, lips set in a mournful line, some patchy stubble emerging from the pores around your mouth and chin. At these quarters, this long face is the spitting image of your father's. You pull back in alarm. She wasn't a good wife, let alone a good daughter-in-law. back to the letter, but this isn't how it sounded in your head. You've often resented Jimin. She certainly wasn't a good wife, but you've never tried to put this resentment into words. Perhaps out of fear that once the words are on paper, they'll rub at your old wounds. And already you feel a little suffocated. You pick up your pen and put it down again, then look to the ceiling and straighten your back, as though fighting to the surface of water for a breath of air. And then you sit, frustrated, waiting for this latest wave of emotion to subside. So those are the opening paragraphs. And now I'm going to jump a little further through the chapter to a time when this character has stopped looking at himself in the mirror and has moved on to the hotel casino. You stand at the slot machine, mechanically insert a 2-cent coin, and then pull the metal lever on the side, staring raptly at the spinning pictures. The reels whir around and around, and come to a stop. Nothing. You have your own special system. 6 goes with 1 cent, 5 goes with 2, 4 with 3, and so on. There's no real reasoning behind it, but you like applying yourself to a set of rules, stuffing your brain full of meaningless calculations so that you can't think of anything else. The slot machines are arranged like a bank of dolled-up women, batting their eyelashes and casting alluring glances at every passerby. Their noises reverberate through the hall, turning it into a kind of frenetic disco. The metallic scrape of the lever, the frantic whir of the wheels, the thrilling ding of the winner's bell, the silvery clatter of coins into the metal dispenser tray. Shouts of dismay, sighs. You lose yourself in the disco music just like everyone else, pulling wildly on the arm of your dance partner, transfixed by the colors flitting across her face. 4 bars, 3 stars, 2 sevens, a red cherry, golden bell, purple lemon. Is it a lemon? It certainly looks like a lemon, but it's purple. You find yourself shouting at the pictures as your coins slowly vanish from the change tray. When the bell finally sounds and more coins come clattering down, you rub your hands in delight, beaming proudly at the players on either side. To your left, there's a middle-aged man in a yellow batik shirt, hair slicked back, piggy eyes, a mole on his cheek sprouting thick black hair. He looks like a loan shark sidekick from a gangster film. His lips are pursed and he yanks aggressively on his lever. Every so often, he mutters something under his breath. It's not a friendly prospect. He seems ready to beat the machine to a pulp if she won't give him more coins. On the right, there's a young guy of around 20, wearing a loose white shirt with a skinny red tie. His lanky frame sways from side to side as he plays, and he's clearly enjoying himself. He keeps leaning over to see where your reels land, wanting to share the fun. At long last, you hit the jackpot with 4 sevens, and the machine doles out $200 in small change. It's such a pity. Why didn't you bet more in the first place? The youngster's already gone, and the man in the batik eyes the money pouring into your tray. You shoot him a quick, pleased glance, and then press the red button on your machine, trying to make the money come faster. Suddenly, you think of Jimin. If only she were here. You came to this casino together once, and you won then too. Coins poured from the machine like water from a burst dam. She jabbed frantically at the red button, clutching your arm in excitement, gripping so hard you yelped in pain. A happy pain. And how long ago was that? Xiao Chang had just turned 1 and you'd left him at home with the nanny. The machine spits out the last few coins and then stutters to a halt. You sigh, scooping the money from the tray and carrying on. You came to Kunding to forget about Qining, but you can't. Even when you focus all your attention on playing, you still can't forget her. Qining. You whisper her name out loud and instantly regret it, casting a panicked look at the middle-aged man. He's just lost the last of his coins. He gives his lever a final angry yank and marches off. A man in a grey suit has taken the spot to your right. He's about 30, squinting, has a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He calmly takes a coin and drops it into his machine. And that's the end of that reading.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, there may have been an echo there. Yes, apparently I'm echoing your speakers, but thank you very much for that. That was aptly depressing. So I will, I'll bring everyone else back now. There we go. I think I will, let's see, I'll bring your videos back and keep you muted for the time being. As a reminder for those of you watching, if you have questions for this next Q&A part of this reading, you can email them to me at allisonschwartz@literarytranslators.org, and I will be checking that every so often. Otherwise, I get to ask questions. So we'll start with Sabrina, since you were the first one. I would love to know how you found this and how you decided to translate it, and did the comicness of it have anything to do with that? Because I'm imagining it did, but I would love to know your process.
Yes, it definitely did. So basically, I was a big fan of the writer Sergei Dovlatov, who's another 1960s Leningrad author who later emigrated to the US and published quite extensively in the New Yorker. And I was looking for a translation project, and I had an inkling that there might be someone from the same era, because it's a very rich and I think somewhat undiscovered period in Russian literature, the 1950s, 1960s thaw period, when the controls of the Soviet Union were relaxing somewhat, and they were letting in more foreign literature, for example. So artists had exposure to more stuff, but the censorship was still quite strict. So although many writers were experimenting quite a lot and doing interesting things, many of them, like my author Grachev, were not published really during the Soviet Union. They didn't get by the censors. So it's a rich period and has many authors that are still to be discovered. So I was just paging through an anthology of Dovlatov's work, and there were some photographs, and I was sort of going through the photographs and just looking through who was there, and it was all writers, so I just looked up everyone basically on the internet, and then I went and got their books from the library, and finally I found Grachev, and yeah, I loved his stories immediately. I just found them so affecting, and the story I read is funny, and many of his stories are funny, but many of them are also just like extremely poignant. He writes beautifully from the perspective of children, as you can tell from that story. And he has a very unusual style for a Russian writer. I think his prose is very spare, very humorous, kind of a telegraphic style. So those are all things that drew me to him.
Excellent. And I would like more. Well, we'll just keep going. I was wondering about your translation process, specifically if you have, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that amazing string of curse words, because I thought it was interesting because it jumped from kind of the normal curse words, if you want to call it that, to
Sure.
the demons and succubi all of them. How was that to find the right tone for you?
Yeah, in the Russian, I don't have it in front of me. I can't remember exactly what words he used, but it was quite a diverse string of different epithets, and none of them, I think, were quite as rude as the ones that I used, because in Russian, curse words are like really rude, like you would never say them in literature, whereas in English literature, I think it's pretty acceptable and no one's gonna be incredibly shocked. So I think I did probably ramp up the rudeness a little bit. And then there was just such a diversity. I mean, I think also in Russian there's a much greater diversity of bad things that you can call people. So in English, I had to sort of reach for some unusual kind of obscure examples. But
yeah, that was definitely great.
Yeah.
Noah, I would like to ask you a few questions as well.
Sure.
Specifically, working from French, I of course have a little bit more knowledge of what you may be looking at than the other two. But I was thinking, I don't think I've read very much fiction that gives the perspective of people in the banlieue. And those are very much, you know, there's a really negative connotation for the banlieue projects in France. And do you know if this is kind of one of the first that's come out, and did that play a role in you selecting this project?
That's a great question. I think banlieue literature is something that we're going to start seeing more and more of, both in France and in translation. There are some folks who have been doing it from a slightly different angle. Dominique Fabre writes a little bit about the banlieue, but mostly from like a middle-aged white man perspective. So it's a slightly different one than this like younger one. There's so Patrick Goujon, he grew up in the banlieue, and he, like his character in this novel, worked as a school guidance counselor essentially. And so I think this is pretty rooted in reality. And most of the novel takes place on vacation, like a summer vacation in the country, with these kids from the projects. And yeah, I think it's a really exciting thing to be bringing into English for me. It's, I think, one of the greatest things about translation is its ability to complicate notions that we might have of other cultures in America or anywhere else in the world. And so to be able to open that whole aspect of French culture is really exciting and interesting and challenging. Other examples in film would be like Entre les Murs. That's a really great film that takes place in a classroom in the banlieue. So I feel like this book has a bit of a kin there.
Definitely. What were some of the challenges for you working on this translation over the course of the last year? Was it a lot of register, vocabulary, something else?
Mostly register. I found myself really struggling with exactly the right tone to take with the way that these children speak, because I think it's very accurately reported in the book, and it's hard to bring that into English without making it sound like existing English registers. So to take a very unique, not very unique, a unique linguistic register of the children of the banlieue. Many of them have parents from West Africa, or they were born in West Africa, or in the Caribbean, or anywhere else. So there's all these linguistic and cultural influences that are not in the like standard written French. So a lot of it I had to learn. And then a lot of it was trying to bring that into English without making it sound like an existing English register, not making it sound like African-American vernacular English, for example, which would be unfaithful and untrue and unfair. So kind of letting it be its own thing without it sounding weird was very challenging. I think sometimes I succeeded, sometimes it still came across a little awkward.
As with everything, this is always a work in progress.
Of course. There's also, at one point in the novel, there's a brief rap that happens. That was,
oh boy.
Yeah, still working on making that rhyme. Yeah, that was something I wasn't expecting to come across.
I was interested to see the parallels between your work and Sabrina's translation, because the you know, kids in different eras, different countries, and yet they're all still just goofing around.
Mm-hmm.
I very much liked that. So Natasha, I am most interested to hear, and I would love to hear how you came across this novel and all that, but I am super interested to hear about your experience working with the second person narration, because that has such a reputation for being so difficult to make work and to make realistic. So how did you go about working with that? And I will say I found it extremely successful, and I'm really glad we had such comic things before you, because that was slightly depressing. So good job with that.
Thanks. Well, perhaps a backstory to having the second person narration. This wasn't actually the book that I proposed for the mentorship. So for the mentorship, I proposed a collection of short stories by the same author, but it turned out his wife had just finished the translation of those stories, so they were not available. But then the author himself proposed this book and said that he felt very affectionate about it. And one of the reasons that he liked it was because he was experimenting with using different pronouns. And I think because he did it at the end of the 80s, I think he also felt that he had kind of beat the curve. So he was one of the first people in that wave to use it. So it was one of the things that he liked. And yeah, so there it was. And I read the book, and I actually felt a bit wary to start with because, yeah, second person I think doesn't always work, and sometimes can just seem like it's done for, not the hell of it, but yeah, it's contentious. But I really liked it, and I felt that it was really effective at making you feel uncomfortably close to the protagonist. But when I translated it for the first draft, I did have the second person in the past tense, because I did the first and the third person also in the past tense, like it was narrating a novel. And then I was talking about it with Jeremy and my mentor, and he suggested trying it in the present tense. And he also suggested trying to think of it kind of like somebody doing a voiceover in a film, which I found really helpful as a kind of way to visualize it. And I think he was right, and I think the present tense does work better, which obviously is a freedom that you have in Chinese, which I guess you might not have in French or Russian, because in Chinese the tenses are more flexible anyway. So yeah, that was the process of arriving there. The other challenge that also came with it, which is sort of present in all the chapters, but I think especially in the second person, which is that in Chinese I think there's a much higher tolerance for starting sentences with the pronoun, like just repeatedly. So I think that Yeng Pway Ngon has a very precise rhythm to the way that he writes his sentences, but he does repeat the pronoun a lot. And in English, I think it didn't really convey the rhythm that he had in Chinese. So I did have to think quite hard about different ways to start the sentences. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very much in awe of the work that you've done, and indeed all three of you, because you've each achieved such vastly different yet wonderful translations of these things, and I'm very, very proud of all of the work that you guys have done, and all of the success that you have already had, because all of this is just fantastic. Is there, I did just want to open it up to the three of you in case you had any questions for your fellow translators. I realized that was, something I should probably let you do if you'd like to. And if not, that's okay too.
I guess how did you guys find it? Like, how did you guys find working with your mentors? Did you find it, did you think that it really helped you grow as translators? We were leading.
For me, absolutely, yeah, it was an incredible experience, actually. Yeah, and Marian was just incredibly generous with her time and had so much experience, and I think just the conversations we had about the individual stories were the most helpful thing. And yeah, because there are just these issues that come up with that nobody else in the world would know what you were talking about, but she knew exactly.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic.
Piggybacking off that question, what was the, and for all of you, what was the one thing that your mentors taught you that you think is the most helpful for you, either in the act of translation or in trying to work as a translator?
Get a comfortable chair. Emmanuelle told me that on day one. She said, you're going to be sitting at a desk for hours and hours and hours. Have a comfy chair. Still working on it.
You still don't have it? It's been a year, Noah. Come on.
I live in San Francisco. Expenses are high. Chair is it's on the list. It's comfortable enough.
I think that's good advice. If I had to say from am I live? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the green dust. I didn't get any so succinct advice from Jeremy, but I would say that in terms of actually translating, then I think maybe it helped me see that you have a bit of room to maneuver with the language. Like, you don't have to be so, like, you have to look at the text as an English text and see how it works and figure out how to make it work. And if that means deviating slightly from the Chinese, sometimes that can be beneficial rather than just unfaithful. So I think figuring out that space was really helpful. And in terms of translation as a career, I think Jeremy is just fantastically organized and far-seeing. So I think he really helped me see that you have to kind of be looking ideally kind of 3 projects ahead. So I mean, I don't think I've quite achieved that, but he did help me see that that's something to aspire to, like to see how to line up projects and chase them while also working on a project, which is, yeah, something that I didn't have in mind before.
That's good advice for any freelancer, I think.
Yeah.
I think for me, yeah, again, I don't know if I got any very pithy advice, but one thing that Marian was always pushing me to do was just to look at the expansion rate in English from Russian, because you know, for various grammatical reasons, you tend to add a lot of words when you translate from Russian, and you don't necessarily notice because the words are shorter in English, so it looks like it's the same length, but really you've added a lot of word count. So she basically told me that I should expect a 1/3 expansion rate, which was a very scientific way of looking at it, but very helpful. And anything more than that, I should really examine what I was doing.
Well, that actually makes you really luckier than Chinese translators, because I think definitely in the UK, a lot of places pay you per English word, like per 1,000 English words. And in Chinese, that's normally by 1/3. So I guess if you're learning from Russian, then
there you go. Yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I am so pleased to have been able to give you a bit of a platform to share your work, because you have done incredible work over the last year. And I'm so pleased that you all have gone through this program and had such good experience with it. So from an ALTA perspective, we will be sharing the news of all of our mentees, both past and present, when they inevitably get publications and win awards and all of this. It's already happened for the mentees from last year, or from the pilot year rather, so we'll be sharing news of these three and of Eliza as well, I'm sure, very, very soon. So watch all of the ALTA social media sites, and we'll be letting you know what they've done. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Noah and Sabrina and Natasha. Thank you to all of our viewers. Thank you again to all of our funders and mentors and everybody at ALTA who supported this program. It really does take a village, and this is the result of it, and as you can see, it is well worth it. So happy Translation Day, everyone, and we will see you next time.